Captain Hyunwoo walked through the bright halls of Research Station Kepler 442. The station floated in space like a giant metal flower, with sections spreading out from a central hub. Half the station belonged to humans and half belonged to the Villani. The Villani were strange and beautiful creatures. They looked like they were made of living crystal, standing only 4 feet tall. Their skin was clear like glass and soft light glowed inside their bodies. When they were happy, they glowed brighter. When they were sad, their light grew dim. Hyunwoo had worked with the Villani for 3 years now. They were gentle people who loved science and learning. They could control energy with their minds, shaping it like clay, but their crystal bodies were fragile. A hard fall could crack them badly. Today was special. Dr. Minho, one of Earth's best scientists, had brought his 8-year-old daughter So-jin to see the station. The little girl ran through the halls, her eyes wide with wonder. She pressed her face against the big windows, watching stars twinkle in the darkness of space. "Papa, why do the Villani glow?" So-jin asked, tugging on her father's lab coat. Minho smiled and knelt down. "They're made of living crystal, sweetheart. The light shows their feelings." 3 Villani scientists worked in the main lab today. Cathara was the oldest, her crystal skin showing tiny lines of age. Morvel was younger, his light dancing with excitement. Lunhai was the smallest, barely 3 feet tall but very smart. They were testing something called exotic matter. It was dangerous stuff that could create huge amounts of energy. The humans and Villani worked together, combining human technology with Villani energy control. "Energy levels look good," called out Dr. Yoon-suk from her control station. Numbers flowed across her screen in green light. Cathara floated her crystal hands over a glowing sphere. Inside the sphere, exotic matter swirled like liquid fire. "Containment field is stable," she said in her musical voice. All Villani sounded like they were singing when they talked. So-jin watched from the observation deck above the lab. Her father had told her to stay there where it was safe. She loved watching the Villani work. Their hands moved like dancers and energy flowed around them in beautiful patterns. Everything went wrong in seconds. A warning alarm screamed through the station. Red lights flashed everywhere. The exotic matter sphere began to shake and grow brighter. "Containment failure," shouted Dr. Yoon-suk. "The field is breaking down." Hyunwoo ran into the lab as sparks flew from control panels. The exotic matter was getting unstable. If it exploded, it would destroy the entire station and everyone on it. "Emergency evacuation," Hyunwoo called over the alarms. "Everyone to the escape pods." The Villani tried to strengthen the containment field, but it was too late. Cracks of pure energy shot out from the sphere. One crack hit the observation deck and the floor began to break apart. So-jin screamed as the deck tilted. She slid toward a huge hole that opened in the floor. Her small hands grabbed the edge, but she couldn't hold on. She fell into the reactor chamber right next to the unstable exotic matter. "So-jin," Minho cried out. He tried to run toward his daughter, but energy barriers blocked his way. The radiation around the exotic matter would kill any human instantly. The little girl lay on the metal floor of the reactor chamber. She was alive, but trapped. Above her, the exotic matter sphere grew brighter and more dangerous. In minutes, it would explode with the force of a small sun. "We need to evacuate now," someone shouted. "The explosion will happen soon." But Minho would not leave his daughter. "There has to be a way," he cried. "We can't just abandon her?" The 3 Villani scientists looked at each other. Light pulsed between their crystal bodies as they spoke in their own language. Cathara's glow became very bright and steady. "There is a way," Cathara said quietly. "We can create a living shield." Morvel and Lunhai understood immediately. Their light grew brighter too. "It will kill us," Morvel said simply. "Yes," said Cathara. "But the child will live." Hyunwoo stared at them. "You don't have to do this. She's not even your species." Lunhai's small body glowed like a star. "A child is a child. Her future is worth any price." Before anyone could stop them, the 3 Villani joined hands and stepped toward the reactor chamber. Their crystal bodies began to shine with incredible light. Energy flowed between them, connecting their life forces. They jumped down into the reactor chamber, landing around So-jin like protective guardians. "Don't be afraid, little star," Cathara whispered to So-jin in perfect human language. "We will keep you safe." The 3 Villani spread their arms wide. Light poured out of their bodies, forming a crystal shell around So-jin. The shell was beautiful, like the inside of a rainbow. Through the crystal walls, So-jin could see the Villani's faces. They were smiling. even though she could see cracks starting to appear in their skin. The exotic matter exploded. The blast was like watching a star be born. Pure energy filled the reactor chamber, enough to melt metal and turn stone to gas. But the Villani shield held. Their crystal bodies absorbed all the deadly radiation and heat. When the light faded, Sojin sat safely inside the crystal shell. She had only small cuts and bruises. Around her, 3 piles of glowing dust showed where her protectors had been. The dust still glowed softly, and somehow Sojin could hear whispers in the light, the last words of the 3 Villani, translated by their final gift of energy. One child's future, worth any price. Rescue teams found Sojin 20 minutes later. She was crying, but not from pain. She cried for the 3 crystal people who had died to save her. In her small hands, she held 3 tiny crystal fragments, all that remained of her protectors. Dr. Minho held his daughter tight, tears running down his face. Captain Hyunwoo stood nearby, staring at the dust that had once been 3 living, thinking beings. Why? Hyunwoo asked quietly. Why did they do it? Dr. Eun-suk, who had studied Villani culture for years, wiped her eyes. Because that's who they are. They believe every child carries the future of all life. They couldn't let that future die, even if it cost them everything. The news of what happened spread quickly through human space. 3 aliens had died to save 1 human child. They had asked for nothing in return. They had simply seen a child in danger and given their lives without hesitation. Humanity would remember this moment forever. The news hit Earth like a lightning bolt. 3 alien beings had died to save 8-year-old Sojin, a human child they barely knew. The story spread across every news channel, every social network, every conversation on the planet. Dr. Yoonji sat in her laboratory at Seoul University, watching the reports with tears in her eyes. She was Minho's sister, which made Sojin her niece. But more than that, Yoonji was Earth's leading expert on Villani biology and culture. She knew things about the Villani that most humans didn't understand. Things that made their sacrifice even more heartbreaking. The 3 Villani who died, Cathara, Morvel, and Lunhai, all had families. In Villani culture, adults shared their life energy with their young. Without that energy sharing, Villani children couldn't survive to adulthood. Yoonji pulled up the files on her computer screen. Cathara had 2 young offspring. Morvel had 3. Lunhai had 1 newborn just emerged from its crystal egg. These children were now orphans, and without adult Villani to share energy with them, they would slowly fade and die. She picked up her communication device and called her brother. Minho answered immediately, his face appearing on the screen. Behind him, Sojin sat quietly, holding the 3 crystal fragments she refused to let go. How is she? Yoonji asked. Physically, she's fine, but she keeps asking about the 3 who saved her. She wants to know if they had children. Minho's voice was heavy with sorrow. They did, Yoonji said quietly. 6 children total. All of them will die without adult energy sharing. Minho closed his eyes. We have to do something. I'm already working on it. But Yoonji, this is bigger than just those 6 children. I've been studying the Villani population data. There are less than 3,000 of them left in the entire galaxy. The truth was worse than most people knew. The Villani homeworld had been destroyed by the Hegemony Coalition, a group of aggressive alien species that took planets and resources by force. The Villani were too gentle to fight back effectively. They had been scattered across space, living in refugee camps and abandoned stations. Most humans didn't know how close the Villani were to extinction. On the other side of the planet, President Tai-min sat in his office reading report after report. His communication devices hadn't stopped ringing since the news broke. Every major leader on Earth wanted to talk about what happened at Kepler 442. Ambassador Jihai knocked on his door and entered. She carried a thick folder of documents and wore the serious expression she only used for the most important matters. Sir, I have the full report on the Villani situation, she said, placing the folder on his desk. Tai-min opened it and began reading. With each page, his expression grew more grave. This can't be right. Only 3,000 Villani left alive. The Hegemony Coalition has been hunting them for decades. They want the Villani's energy manipulation technology. Any Villani they capture are forced to work until they die. The ones who escape live in hiding. And 3 of them just died to save a human child? Jihai nodded. Not just any human child, sir. They had never met Sojin before that day. They saved her because she was a child in danger. That's all. Meanwhile, across human space, something unprecedented was happening. The story of Sojin and her 3 protectors was spreading faster than any news story in human history. On Mars colony, 10-year-old Jae Won started drawing pictures of crystal people protecting a little girl. He posted them on the Children's Network, and within hours, millions of children were creating their own art honoring the fallen Vellani. On Europa Station, retired soldier Dong Hyun watched the news and felt something he hadn't felt since his war days. Righteous anger. Not anger at the Vellani, but anger at a universe that would let gentle beings like them suffer. He started a petition demanding humanity help the remaining Vellani survivors. The petition gained 1 million signatures in the first day, 10 million by the second day. By the third day, over 1 billion humans had signed it. Admiral Yujin of the Human Defense Fleet was having the strangest week of her military career. Her recruitment offices were being flooded with volunteers. Not just soldiers, but doctors, engineers, teachers, farmers. Millions of humans wanted to serve in whatever way they could to help the Vellani. "I've never seen anything like it," her aide, Commander Hyo-sung, reported. "We've had more volunteer applications in 3 days than we normally get in a year." "What are they volunteering for exactly?" Yujin asked. "That's the interesting part. They don't seem to care what job they get assigned. They just want to help protect the Vellani." The emotional response was unlike anything in human history. Restaurants started offering free meals to any Vellani visitors. Schools began teaching children about Vellani culture. Musicians wrote songs honoring Kethara, Morvel, and Lunhai. But it wasn't just Earth. Every human colony, every space station, every outpost was responding the same way. Humanity was united in a way they had never been before. Dr. Sung Ho, Earth's leading expert in terraforming, was working 18-hour days. He had started designing something he called Project Sanctuary, a plan to create perfect worlds where Vellani could live safely. "The Vellani need very specific conditions," he explained to his team. "Their crystal bodies need certain minerals. The light has to be exactly right. We're not just building colonies, we're building homes designed specifically for them." On a small refugee station near the edge of human space, an old Vellani named Veltana listened to the reports about human reactions. She was the eldest of all surviving Vellani, nearly 300 years old. Her crystal skin was clouded with age, but her mind was sharp. Younger Vellani around her were confused by what they were hearing. "The humans are willing to fight for us?" asked Nimara. "But we barely know them." "That's what makes it so remarkable," Veltana said softly. "They're not protecting us because we're allies or because they need something from us. They're protecting us because 3 of us died to save one of their children." "But why does that matter so much to them?" Veltana's light pulsed thoughtfully. "I think it's because humans understand something that many species don't. They know that how you treat the innocent shows who you truly are. When Kethara, Morvel, and Lunhai died for little Sojin, they showed the humans the best of what we could be." Back on Earth, Sojin sat with her father and aunt, still holding the crystal fragments. The adults were talking about complicated things: politics, military protection, interstellar law. But Sojin understood something simpler and more important. "The crystal people loved me," she said quietly. "They didn't even know my name, but they loved me enough to die for me." Yoonji knelt down beside her niece. "Yes, sweetheart. That's exactly right. Then we should love them back, shouldn't we? All of them?" Such a simple question from a child. But it was the question that would change everything. President Taemin was preparing for the most important speech of his life. In 6 hours he would address not just Earth, but every human world in the galaxy. The decision had been made. Now humanity had to act on it. The 3 Vellani had shielded 1 human child. Now Earth would shield them all. The Global Assembly Hall in New Geneva had never seen anything like this day. Every seat was filled. Representatives from every human world, colony, and space station sat waiting. Millions more watched on screens across human space. President Taemin stood at the podium, looking out at the assembled leaders of humanity. Behind him, a large screen showed the faces of Kethara, Morvel, and Lunhai, the 3 Vellani who had died to save Sojin. In the front row sat Dr. Min Ho and his daughter. Sojin still carried the crystal fragments, now set in a small pendant around her neck. The fragments still glowed softly as if some part of her protector's spirits lived on. "Fellow humans," Taman began, his voice carrying to every corner of the galaxy. "5 days ago, 3 beings made the ultimate sacrifice for one of our children. They didn't know her name. They didn't know if she would grow up to be a scientist, an artist, or a farmer. They only knew she was a child in danger." The hall was completely silent. Even the reporters stopped moving. "Today I have learned something that makes their sacrifice even more meaningful. These 3 Villani, Cathara, Morville, and Lunhai, had children of their own. 6 young Villani who needed their parents' life energy to survive. By saving Sojin, they condemned their own children to death." Gasps echoed through the assembly. Many representatives hadn't known this detail. "But that's not all," Taemin continued. "I have learned that there are fewer than 3,000 Villani left alive in the entire galaxy. Their homeworld was destroyed. Their people scattered. They live in refugee camps, hiding from those who would enslave them or kill them." The president paused, letting the weight of those words sink in. "For too long, humanity has watched from the sidelines while gentle species like the Villani suffer. We have been neutral observers while the strong prey upon the weak. That ends today." Taemin's voice grew stronger, filled with conviction that resonated through every human heart. "Listening. The Villani species has demonstrated the highest ideal of sentient life, the willingness to sacrifice everything for the protection of innocence. They have shown us what it truly means to be noble beings. Therefore, as president of Earth and spokesman for all of humanity, I make this declaration." The president looked directly into the camera, speaking to every human in the galaxy. "Earth hereby declares the entire Villani species under our unconditional protection. Any act of aggression against any Villani, anywhere in the galaxy, will be considered an act of war against humanity itself." The assembly erupted. Some representatives cheered. Others looked shocked. A few seemed worried about the implications of such a bold statement, but Taemin wasn't finished. "Furthermore, humanity commits the following. Every human world will offer sanctuary to Villani refugees. Every human fleet will escort Villani to safety. Every human scientist will work to find them a new homeworld where they can live in peace." Admiral Yujin stood up from her seat. "Mr. President, the Human Defense Fleet stands ready to enforce this protection with our lives." Dr. Seung-ho rose next. "Project Sanctuary is already underway. We will build them worlds designed specifically for their needs." One by one, other leaders stood. Colonial governors, fleet commanders, scientists, teachers, all of them pledging their support for humanity's newest responsibility. But not everyone was happy about the declaration. On the other side of the galaxy, General Vextar of the Hegemony Coalition watched the broadcast with growing anger. The Hegemony had spent decades hunting down the remaining Villani, wanting their energy manipulation abilities for military purposes. "The humans think they can protect a species we have already claimed?" Vextar growled to his officers. "These emotional creatures don't understand the reality of galactic politics." His aide, Commander Draklon, shifted nervously. "Sir, humanity has a powerful military. Perhaps we should reconsider our plans for the Villani." "Nonsense." Vextar slammed his clawed hand on the table. "Humans are soft. They care too much about individual lives to fight a real war. We'll show them what happens when they interfere with hegemony business." Meanwhile, on a small refugee station, the Villani community was in shock. Feltana, the eldest among them, had gathered all the survivors to listen to the human president's speech. "I don't understand," said young Nimara. "Why would the humans do this? We can't repay them. We have nothing to offer." Feltana's aged crystal body pulsed with soft light. "Child, you're thinking like Prey thinks. The humans aren't doing this because they want something from us. They're doing it because Cathara, Morville, and Lunhai showed them who we really are." "But the cost," whispered another Villani named Torvus. "If they protect us, they'll have to fight the hegemony. Humans will die because of us." "Yes," Veltana said simply, "and that's what makes this so remarkable. They know the cost and they're willing to pay it." Back on Earth, Sojin was watching the news reports with her family. The little girl didn't understand all the political talk, but she understood something important was happening. "Papa," she asked, "does this mean no more Villani will die?" Dr. Minho picked up his daughter and held her close. "We're going to try very hard to make sure of that, sweetheart." "Good," Sojin said firmly. The crystal people who saved me would want their friends to be safe. The response from human space was immediate and overwhelming. Transport ships volunteered to carry Villani refugees to safety. Construction crews signed up to build new homes. Doctors studied Villani biology to better care for them, but perhaps the most touching response came from the children's schools across human space started something called Crystal Light projects. Children learned about Villani culture and created art, honoring not just the 3 who died but all Villani. They raised money to help refugee families. They wrote letters to Villani children promising friendship and protection. One letter, written by a 9-year-old girl named Heejin on Mars colony, would become famous. Dear Villani friends, you don't know me, but I know you are scared. Don't be scared anymore. My big sister is in the fleet and she promised me she will keep you safe. All the humans will keep you safe because you saved our Sojin. Thank you for showing us how to be brave. The letter was translated into Villani light language and broadcast to every refugee station. Many adult Villani wept when they received it, their crystal bodies glowing with emotions too complex for words. Dr. Yoonji was working around the clock, coordinating with Villani communities to understand their needs. She had learned that the 6 orphaned children of the 3 heroes were indeed dying, but slowly. There might be time to save them if adult Villani could be found to share energy with them. We found them, her assistant Q-Rin reported excitedly. There's a small Villani community in the Tau Ceti system. They're willing to take in the orphan. How small? Yoonji asked. 30 adults, 12 children. They've been hiding from the hegemony for years. Then we'll protect them too, Yoonji said without hesitation. All of them. The first test of humanity's commitment came sooner than expected. Long-range sensors detected hegemony ships moving toward the Tau Ceti system, where the small Villani community was hiding. Admiral Yu Jin received the report and immediately dispatched a protection fleet. Task Force Guardian, you are ordered to Tau Ceti with all possible speed. Protect the Villani community there at all costs. Captain Jae Sung of the battleship Indomitable acknowledged the order. As his ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, he thought about the magnitude of what humanity was attempting. They were declaring war on anyone who threatened a species of 3,000 gentle crystal beings. It seemed impossible, even insane. But when Jae Sung remembered the image of 3 Villani forming a protective shell around a human child, giving their lives without hesitation, he knew humanity was doing exactly the right thing. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you threatened someone under human protection. The convoy moved slowly through space, 30 transport ships carrying Villani refugees toward their new home. The ships were old and barely spaceworthy, filled with crystal beings who had been running and hiding for decades. Captain Jae Sung watched the convoy from the bridge of his battleship, the Indomitable. His task force of 12 human warships surrounded the transports like protective wolves guarding their pack. Sir, called Lieutenant Bo Young from her sensor station, I'm picking up multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace. Big ones. On the main screen, 18 hegemony warships appeared in flashes of twisted light. Each ship was larger than anything in Jae Sung's task force, bristling with weapons designed for one purpose: destruction. The lead hegemony ship sent a transmission. General Vextar's ugly face appeared on the screen, his reptilian features twisted in a cruel smile. Human captain, Vextar hissed. You will immediately surrender the Villani criminals you are transporting. They are the property of the Hegemony Coalition, claimed by right of conquest. Jae Sung stood up slowly. Behind him, his crew waited tensely at their stations. General Vextar, the beings under my protection are refugees, not criminals. They are under the protection of Earth. You will withdraw immediately. Vextar laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Protection? You humans and your emotions? You have 12 ships. I have 18. Your protection is meaningless against superior firepower. Then you don't understand humans very well, Jae Sung replied calmly. Final warning, General. Withdraw now or we will make you withdraw. Foolish mammals, Vextar snarled. All ships target the transports. Destroy the Villani vessels. The first hegemony ship opened fire. What happened next would be talked about in military academies for generations. Jae Sung's task force moved like they had trained for this exact moment their entire lives. The human ships didn't try to match the hegemony's firepower. Instead, they used speed, precision, and something the enemy didn't expect: pure, Focused rage. The indomitable dove toward the largest hegemony ship, all weapons blazing. But instead of trying to destroy it, Jae-sung targeted its weapon systems with surgical precision. Every shot was calculated to disable, not destroy. Target their guns, not their engines, he commanded. Leave them alive to carry the message. Around the convoy, the other human ships moved in perfect coordination. They had trained for fleet combat, but never like this. They weren't fighting to conquer territory or claim resources. They were fighting to protect the innocent, and that changed everything. Lieutenant Commander Sang-mi, commanding the destroyer Swift Justice, found herself facing 3 hegemony ships at once. Instead of retreating, she accelerated toward them. All power to forward shields, she ordered. We're going through them, not around them. Her ship sliced between the enemy vessels like a knife, firing at point-blank range. 2 hegemony ships lost their main weapons. The third took critical damage to its command bridge. On the transport ships, terrified Villani watched through crystal windows as human warships danced around their enemies. The humans moved like they were protecting their own children, taking impossible risks to keep the transport safe. Elder Veltana stood in the main transport, her old crystal body glowing with amazement. Look at them fight, she whispered to the Villani around her. They're not just using weapons. They're using their hearts. The battle reached its peak when General Vextar's flagship fired directly at the transport carrying Villani children. The massive energy beam would have vaporized the defenseless ship instantly. Captain Jae-sung didn't hesitate. He threw his battleship directly into the path of the beam. The indomitable shields flared brilliant white as they absorbed energy meant to kill children. Alarm screamed across the bridge as systems overloaded, but the ship held together, and the transport behind it remained untouched. Sir, shouted Bo-young, we can't take another hit like that. Then we don't give them the chance, Jae-sung replied grimly. All ships, new formation. We end this now. The 12 human ships suddenly moved in perfect unity, forming a complex pattern around the hegemony fleet. It looked like chaos, but it was actually the most advanced naval tactic in human space, the Guardian Formation. Each human ship was exactly where it needed to be to protect the others. When one ship was targeted, 2 others were already in position to defend it. When one ship attacked, 3 others provided covering fire. The hegemony ships, designed for overwhelming firepower against static targets, couldn't adapt to such fluid protective tactics. Within 10 minutes, every hegemony ship was disabled. Their weapons were destroyed, their shields were down, but their crews were alive. General Vextar's flagship drifted helplessly, smoke pouring from its broken weapon ports. The general himself stared at his screens in disbelief. Impossible, he muttered. How did 12 ships defeat 18? His aide, Commander Draklon, was reviewing the battle recordings. Sir, they fought like nothing we've ever seen. They weren't trying to win a battle. They were trying to save lives. Jae-sung opened a communication channel to all the disabled hegemony ships. General Vextar, your fleet is defeated. You have 2 choices. Retreat now and never threaten Villani again, or wait here for the rest of the human defense fleet to arrive. The rest? Vextar asked weakly. Admiral Yujin is en route with 43 more ships. She's not as patient as I am. The threat wasn't empty. Long-range sensors were already detecting the approaching human fleet, moving at maximum speed toward the battle site. But before Vextar could respond, something unexpected happened. The transport carrying the Villani children sent a transmission to the hegemony flagship. A young Villani appeared on the screen. Her crystal body glowed with soft, innocent light. She couldn't have been more than the equivalent of 6 human years old. Bad ship, people, she said in simple, musical words. You tried to hurt us, but the kind humans saved us. Why do you want to hurt children? The question hung in space like a condemnation. Across the hegemony fleet, alien warriors who had spent their lives conquering and destroying found themselves staring at a child they had tried to murder. Some of them had children of their own. Commander Draklon looked at General Vextar with new eyes. Sir, what are we doing here? We're trying to kill children. Vextar's reptilian face twisted with conflicting emotions. He had built his career on strength and conquest. But looking at the Villani child and remembering how the humans had fought not for glory but for protection, he felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Shame. All hegemony ships, he said quietly. Withdraw to base. We're done here. As the hegemony fleet limped away, the human convoy continued toward safety. On the Indomitable, Captain Jae-sung received a transmission from Admiral Yu Jin. "Outstanding work, Captain," she said. "You protected every single refugee without losing a single ship. How did you do it?" Jae-sung looked at his crew, all of them exhausted but proud. "We remembered what we were fighting for, Admiral. Not territory, not resources. We were fighting for the same reason those 3 Villani died for Sojin. And what reason is that? Because protecting innocent life is what separates civilization from barbarism." News of the battle spread across the galaxy within hours. Humanity had faced its first test as protectors of the Villani, and they had passed with flying colors, but more importantly, they had sent a clear message to every species in known space. Threatening those under human protection was no longer just wrong. It was impossible. The convoy reached safety 3 days later. As the Villani refugees disembarked on their new world, they glowed brighter than they had in decades. For the first time in their lives, they felt truly safe. Elder Veltana approached Captain Jae-sung as he visited the new settlement. "Thank you," she said simply, "not just for the battle, but for showing us that there are still species in this galaxy who understand honor." "Thank you," Jae-sung replied, "for showing us what honor looks like. 3 of your people died for one of our children. We'll never forget that." The trial by fire was over. Humanity had proven they meant every word of their declaration, but this was just the beginning. 5 years had passed since the declaration, and the galaxy looked completely different. Sojin, now 13 years old, stood on the observation deck of New Valania, watching the sunset paint the crystal gardens in brilliant colors. She was no longer just Sojin. The Villani had given her an honor name, Kira, which meant protected light in their language. Beside her stood Morkessa, a young Villani whose parents had died in the same explosion that killed Kira's 3 protectors. The two had grown up together, learning each other's languages, cultures, and dreams. "The new crystal towers are beautiful," Kira said, watching the Villani architecture grow from the ground like living gems. "Your people and mine build amazing things together." Morkessa's crystal body glowed with happy blue light. "The human engineers understand our needs now. These buildings will sing with the wind and store sunlight for the dark times." New Valania was the crown, jewel of Project Sanctuary, a world designed specifically for Villani needs, but built with human determination and technology. It orbited a gentle star that provided exactly the right spectrum of light for Villani health. The soil contained the perfect minerals for their crystal bodies. The cities were works of art that combined human engineering with Villani beauty. But New Valania was just one of 17 worlds now protecting Villani communities. What had started with 3,000 desperate refugees had grown into a thriving civilization of over 12,000 Villani, with new crystal eggs hatching every month. General Haewon, formerly Captain Jae-sung, walked through the integrated training facility where humans and Villani learned to work together. The Sanctuary Defense Corps had become the most feared peacekeeping force in known space, not because they were the most violent, but because they combined human tactical thinking with Villani energy manipulation. Squadron 7, show me the shield wall formation. Haewon called to a mixed group of human soldiers and Villani warriors. The humans quickly formed a defensive line while the Villani created barriers of pure energy between them and their targets. The result was a defensive formation that could stop almost any attack while protecting innocent civilians behind it. But they had learned offensive tactics too. Human precision combined with Villani energy control created weapons that could disable enemy ships without killing their crews, or stop armies without destroying cities. Remember, Haewon told his mixed unit, "We don't fight to conquer, we fight to protect." Every enemy you defeat should be able to go home to their family and think about why they attacked innocent people. This philosophy had changed everything. The Sanctuary Defense Corps had fought 12 major battles in 5 years, protecting not just Villani but other peaceful species who asked for help. They had never lost a battle, and remarkably, they had never killed more than a handful of enemy soldiers. Their enemies learned quickly that fighting the Sanctuary Corps meant facing opponents who fought with their hearts as much as their weapons. President Sujin, who had taken over from Taiman 2 years ago, stood before the Galactic Council in the Grand Assembly Station. The Council had been reluctant to recognize humanity's protection of the Villani at first, but the results spoke for themselves. The Sanctuary Alliance now includes 47 species, Sujin reported to the assembled representatives. Species that were endangered, oppressed, or displaced have found safety under our protection. The galaxy is becoming a more peaceful place, it was true. Humanity's example had inspired other powerful species to protect the weak instead of conquering them. The Altarians now guarded 3 refugee species. The Centauri Federation had established safe worlds for peaceful traders. Even some former enemies had joined the alliance after seeing how protection was more rewarding than conquest. But the heart of it all remained the relationship between humans and Villani. Master Keth, named after one of Kira's protectors, was the first Villani born under human protection. Now 5 years old, he glowed brighter than any Villani in recorded history. Villani scientists believed that safety and happiness actually made their species stronger and more vibrant. Keth played in the crystal gardens with human children who had grown up alongside Villani. They shared toys, games, and dreams without caring about the difference between crystal skin and soft flesh. Dr. Yunji, now director of interspecies relations, watched the children play and marveled at how natural their friendship seemed. Aunt Yunji, Kira called, running up with Morkessa and young Keth. Tell us the story again. Which story? Yunji asked, though she already knew the answer. The story of the 3 who saved you, Morkessa said. The story of how everything started. Yunji sat down in the crystal garden, surrounded by children of both species. This was a story she never tired of telling. It started with an accident, she began. Exotic matter became unstable and a little girl fell into danger. 3 Villani scientists, Kethara, Morvel, and Lunhai, saw that the child was in danger. The children listened with rapt attention. Even though they had heard this story hundreds of times, they didn't know her name. They didn't know if she was important or what she might become. They only knew she was a child who needed protection, so they gave their lives to save her. Young Keth's crystal body glowed with solemn light, and then humans decided to protect all Villani everywhere? That's right, Yunji said. Because humans learned something important that day. We learned that a species is judged not by how strong they are, but by how they treat those who are helpless. The 3 crystal people showed humans what it means to be truly noble, added Morkessa in her musical voice, and humans showed us what it means to be truly grateful, Kira finished. Meanwhile, on a distant space station, former General Vextar worked as a civilian trader. His encounter with the Sanctuary Defense Corps 5 years ago had changed him completely. He now carried supplies to refugee settlements and had never fired a weapon in anger since that day. He often thought about the young Villani child who had asked him why he wanted to hurt children. That simple question had shattered his worldview and rebuilt it into something better. Many other former enemies had similar stories. The combination of decisive military defeat and moral clarity had converted more opponents than any diplomatic treaty ever could. As the sun set on New Villania, Kira and Morkessa sat together watching the stars appear, the same stars that had watched 3 Villani sacrifice their lives for a human child, and that had seen humanity respond with unprecedented protection. Do you think they would be proud? Morkessa asked. Kethara, Morvel, and Lunhai, do you think they would be happy to see what grew from their sacrifice? Kira touched the crystal pendant around her neck, where the fragments of her 3 protectors still glowed softly. I think they knew this would happen. I think they could see the future in that moment. And they knew that saving one child would somehow save everyone. In the distance, human and Villani engineers worked side by side, building new cities for both species. Human children and Villani younglings played together in parks designed for both types of beings. Soldiers of both species trained together, preparing to defend anyone who needed protection. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Sometimes the smallest act of protection can grow into something that transforms everything. President Sujin's words to the Galactic Council would be remembered for generations. They shielded one human child from death, asking nothing in return. We shielded their entire species from extinction, asking nothing but the chance to prove that strength exists to protect the gentle, not consume them. The Villani taught us that sometimes the smallest gesture of protection can reshape the universe. They saved one child, and in doing so they saved the idea that goodness still exists in the galaxy. We will never let that light go out. As night fell on New Villania, The crystal cities began to glow with stored sunlight, creating a soft radiance that could be seen from orbit. It was a beacon of hope in the darkness of space, proof that when gentle beings and strong beings work together, they can create something more beautiful than either could achieve alone. 3. Vellani had died to save one human child. In return, humanity had given them something beyond price, a future where their children could grow up safe. Their culture could flourish, and their gentle nature was seen as strength rather than weakness. The story that began with sacrifice had become a story of hope, protection, and the unbreakable bonds formed when different species choose to see the best in each other. And in the crystal gardens of New Valania, children of two species played together under the stars, protected by the greatest military force the galaxy had ever known, a force built not on conquest, but on the simple truth that those who protect innocence deserve protection in return.